Hello everyone, welcome back to Believers IAS Academy, Bengaluru. This is the Daily News Analysis. Today, on 9th September 2025, we will discuss some important articles from UPSC prelims, mains as well as interview perspective. The first article is from the Hindu front page, which talks about Supreme Court orders Election Commission to accept Aadhaar as ID in Bihar voters list revision. Okay, we all know what is happening in Bihar. In Bihar, there is a special intensive revision of electoral rolls in Bihar. Nearly 65 lakh votes were excluded from the draft rolls. Okay, 65 lakh votes were excluded from the draft rolls because they lacked sufficient documents. And initially this Aadhaar card was not considered as an ID or not as a not acceptable as a proof of document in intensive revision. Now, Supreme Court has said that you should use Aadhaar card as well. So, what is Supreme Court's directions? Aadhaar to be accepted as a 12th indicative document for inclusion or exclusion in the voter rolls and can be used only as a proof of identity or residence and not for citizenship. Very important. Next, EC must instruct electoral registration officers and BLOs to accept Aadhaar. And Aadhaar's authenticity and genuineness may be verified similar to other relevant documents. Okay, so you are verifying other relevant documents, so do the same for Aadhaar, but accept Aadhaar as a proof of document. So what were the arguments in court? So Kapil Sibal for RJD said that BLOs still are refusing Aadhaar card and EC is penalizing officers who accepted it, which is gross contempt of Supreme Court orders. Then Rakesh Dwivedi for the EC said that Aadhaar is not equivalent to passport. 99% excluded voters already submitted claims and process is not hampered at all. So instead of Aadhaar, they have already provided some other documents. Why to go for Aadhaar? That is the argument of Election Commission. But the judicial observation was that Justice Joymala Bagchi said that Aadhaar is already linked to RPA, that is Right to Protection Representation of People's Act provisions as proof of residence, and Justice Suryakant said that Aadhaar is like any other official IDs but not proof of citizenship, but it has to be considered as a proof of residence only. Court had earlier nudged EC to accept Aadhaar as well, but Election Commission has not accepted Aadhaar at the moment. But now after this, Election Commission has to accept Aadhaar card as a proof of document, or else it will be a blatant violation of contempt of court, or violation of Supreme Court order, which will amount to contempt of court. Significance is electoral rights. It ensures that large number of voters aren't excluded due to rights rigid documentation, and Aadhaar debate reinforces judicial protection or position that Aadhaar is valid for identity and residence but not conclusive for proof of citizenship. Institutional tussle. It highlights friction between two important constitutional bodies, that is Judiciary and Election Commission, with allegations of contempt for non-compliance. And upcoming Bihar elections could directly impact voter inclusion and political context. So very important article. Next is an editorial from the Hindu which talks about the domestic sphere in a new India. The domestic sphere in the new India. India is doing everything to become the Vishwaguru that it claims in the coming future, but there are issues in the back home which haven't been addressed. That is the argument that has been shown in this article. So the politics of domestic sphere. Under the present regime, issues of domestic sphere are sidelined, allowing those in power to hijack concepts like Nari Shakti while maintaining regressive approaches to women's role at home. Example is RSS chief statement urging families to have at least 3 children, reducing women to reproduction machines. Okay, so maybe he said in a different context, maybe he wanted to increase the population of India because considering the increase in older people, he gave this idea, but according to the author, she feels that it was just a point making that women as just reproduction machines. Violence and silence. Between 2017 to 2022, 7,000 dowry deaths per year. That is almost 35,000 women killed because of dowry related issues. And according to National Family Health Survey of 2025, Family Health Survey of 5, 30% of women reported intimate partner violence, but only 14% filed police complaints. And one third of all the crimes against women is equal to domestic violence, and yet BJP RSS leader remains silent on this aspect. So they focus on love jihad but avoid addressing domestic abuse consistent with Manusmriti based ideology. Some words or some points which are used by the author are provocative. I am not in support or against any of these statements. I am just stating the opinions of author here. Historical continuity or patriarchy. Opposition to B.R. Ambedkar's Hindu reform bills, which granted divorce rights and challenged caste in marriage. This was done by the Hindutva parties, and Hindutva ecosystem perpetuates pressure on women to adjust in violent marriages, endorsement of honor crimes through silence, resistance to criminalizing marital rape, citing Indian culture and institution of marriage. All these things are historical continuity of this patriarchy. This was upheld, or this was what Hindutva believed in, and that is being carried forward by RSS and BJP ideology according to the author. Next, women's work. Data from Time Use Survey of 2024. This data says that in employment and recognized work, 25% women from the age group of 15 to 59 years in employment are working 5 hours per day, and 23% of women in family enterprises 2 hours per day, and men 75% in employment, that is 8 hours per day, and 14% in family enterprises, that is 2 hours per day. Apart from this, there is another aspect of unpaid and domestic care work. That is 93% women do domestic services, which is around 7 hours per day, and 41% do unpaid caregiving, which is around 2.5 hours per day. Men 70% do not do domestic work. Those who do, they spend 1.5 hours or less than that per day on domestic work. On an average, men spend 26 minutes on day on household and 60 minutes a day on caregiving. So the conclusion is women work more total hours than men with less time for food, sleep and leisure, and also less pay, and the work is also unrecognized. Government's distorted narrative. So Press Information Bureau in February 2025 glorified inequality. That is, caregiving responsibilities borne by females show the greatness of Indian family. That is what Press Information Bureau held in 2025, which was not taken in the right manner by this author. She says that women's triple burden or triple work burden is celebrated as Indian social fabric. Instead of supporting them, instead of reducing the burden, or instead of paying them, we are focusing, or we are romanticizing it as Indian social fabric. Women in Anganwadis, midday meals, ASHA services are treated as volunteers and not workers, and given honorarium but not wages. A very significant thing to be considered. And economic undervaluation of women's work. SBI survey 2025 said that unpaid work is equal to 7% of total GDP, that is 22.5 lakh crores of work is done by women, and women's unpaid work subsidizes low wages by keeping subsistence costs very low. So invisible domestic work, that is essential for labor reproduction but excluded for wage calculations. So these are the issues that are happening in Indian domestic sphere at the moment. Indian domestic sphere. So according to author, she provides certain way forward, alternative approach. That is, first thing is prevent violence against women in families through cultural, social and legal measures, equal right to work and equal wages for men and women, universal child care and elder care facilities provided by the state itself, quality health care and education accessible to all and especially to women, and cultural promotion of shared domestic responsibility between men and women, and justice for scheme workers such as Anganwadi, ASHA and midday meal, minimum wages, recognition as government employees. Okay, minimum wages and also recognition as government employees for Anganwadi and ASHA workers. If we do this, we will be addressing not only the domestic sphere, we are also addressing the issues of women violence, and also will be bringing a virtuous cycle in the India's demographic dividend. Okay, next, an international related article, that is Iran and India, ancient civilizations and new horizons. We will discuss why it is in news and what is the significance of India and Iran relations. A world in transition. that is, the Western led order is dominated by USA, faces decline in the coming years. Indicators of this crisis are violations of international law, trade wars, misuse of force, weakened global institutions like WTO, United Nations, and media manipulation by USA and Western allies, and environmental destruction committed by Western allies but burden put on by global South. Next, the classic Western toolkit, that is finance, technology monopoly, and human rights narrative and medical control are losing power, and they are losing the narrative war at the moment. Next, rise of the global south. Countries of global south are resisting domination through indigenous science, technology, defense, and security models. Ancient civilizations like India and Iran have a unique role in shaping this transformation. Ancient civilization. What was Iran before? It was Persia. What was India before? It was Sindhu Valley or Indus Valley civilization. So we have a history of great civilization on our hand. So it is time for us to reclaim our role as our older civilization and also focus on improving the global south. Next, shared civilization values. That is, India and Iran shaped global culture for centuries. Core values are peaceful coexistence, spiritual growth, respect for diversity, triumph of good over evil. And Islamic influence enriched India, and Iranian values survived through Islamic civilization or Islamic revolution. Both nations historically resisted domination. India through NAM and Iran through nationalization and Islamic revolution. Okay. Next, cost of independence. Iran endured sanctions, economic terrorism, and cognitive warfare, and India faced global pressures and yet retained identity and independence. It is what is happening to India and Iran at the moment. So USA's attack on Iran recently and USA's attack on India, not militarily but in economically through trade wars. Despite all these things, India and Iran are taking their firm stand. Both nations embody peace, spirituality, resistance to domination. Next is new horizons for cooperation. That is, India and Iran can look for alternative areas of cooperation in South-South cooperation as an alternative global path. In BRICS, that is, challenges Western economic dominance, supports de-dollarization, and international North-South transport corridor. It is not just going to be for trade, but a civilizational bridge linking Eurasia, West Asia, India, and Africa. These are the countries that have been ignored or sidelined by the Western-led allies. Okay, next, the Palestine question. Despite the chances or the possibilities of cooperation, there are certain issues between India and Iran, such as the Palestine question. Palestine struggle is equal to core of global South resistance at the moment. Western's hypocrisy and brutality must be most visible here. Iran defends Palestinian rights, peaceful nuclear energy, diplomacy, and international law, and Palestine becomes symbolic of resisting occupation and expansionism led by Western allies. And US interventions and regional instability in West Asia, US and its allies fuel instability via support for Israel and conflicts in Palestine, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, as well as Iran. In South Asia, US created and manipulated terrorist groups using counter-terrorism as a tool for intervention. Iran opposes threats to sovereignty and territorial integrity of the West Asian countries. Next, the road ahead. So, we all saw that there is a need for the civilization countries to come together. So, what is the way forward or the road ahead? That is, the world is at a turning point. Iran and India can model a new order rooted in justice, equality, participation, and dignity, free from domination and superiority. Ancient civilizations must lead in building a multipolar human world order. So, a very important article which talks about India and Iran relations. Next, if you want a video on India and Iran relations regarding military, strategy, diplomatic, or economic, cultural, etc., then write it in the comment box. I will bring a topic of the day on specifically for India and Iran relations. Next is prelims pointers. Bhupen Hazarika was considered as a voice of Brahmaputra and Bard of Northeast. Why is he in news? He is in news because The members of all Assam Students Union pay tribute to Bhupen Hazarika on his birth anniversary in Guwahati on Monday. Prime Minister and Home Minister pay rich tribute to legendary singer, composer. Hazarika carried Assam to world through his soulful melodies and more humanity in his tune and love in his anthem. So, birth and early life, he was born on September 8, 1926 at Sadia, Assam. Childhood spent partly in Arunachal Pradesh, Bolung village, Lower Dibanga Valley. Studied at Banaras Hindu University, MA in Political Science in 1946 and later earned PhD in Mass Communication from Columbia University, USA. Then musical career and contribution. Known as Sudha Kanta meaning a nectar voice and the bard of Brahmaputra. His music drew deeply from folk traditions of Assam and while blending universal themes of humanism, empathy and unity. And his most famous compositions includes Dil Hum Kare, which was popularized by Bollywood, and then Assamese classicals like Mano He Manohar Babe, that is for humans for humanity, and Jilikobo Litore Par, that is Guwahati University's anthem. He composed for Assamese, Bengali and Hindi films, creating bridge between regional and national cultural spheres. And the awards are, he received the most famous Bharat Ratna in 2019, which is India's highest civilian award, Padma Shri in 1977, Padma Bhushan in 2001, and Sangeet Natak Academy Award in 1987, and Dada Saheb Phalke Award in 1992 for lifetime contribution to cinema. Next, from prelims perspective, is notifiable diseases. What is notifiable diseases and why it is in news? It is in news because Parliamentary Standing Committee recommended declaring cancer as a notifiable disease in India. The rationale is it enables robust cancer registry, ensures uniform data collection, helps in policy, screening and treatment planning. And the definition is a notifiable disease is any disease that by law must be reported to government authorities. The objective is surveillance, early warning of outbreaks, prevention and control of these notifiable diseases. Why it is important to classify notifiable diseases? It enables timely monitoring of public health threats, helps in early intervention and resource allocation, supports national and international disease control programs, and criteria for declaring disease as notifiable is very important. That is a disease which is of national and international concern, which is covered by WHO regulations, and high incidence at national, state or district level, severity and mortality potential, high communicability and outbreak potential, risk of international spread, high socio-economic cost, changing epidemiological patterns. Because of all these things, the notified diseases are declared as notifiable, and responsibility and reporting of these notifiable diseases, it lies with medical practitioners, and diagnostic labs must notify local departments about any disease which has a potential of all those characters. State governments decide which diseases are to be notifiable, report to the medical officers, and finally central and state lists may differ, also vary across urban and rural areas. Okay, for example, if we talk about Casanova forest disease or monkey fever disease, it is mainly endemic to Karnataka and Kerala. So they will be declared as a notified disease in Karnataka and Kerala and may not be notified disease throughout the India. Okay, examples of notifiable diseases are cholera, tuberculosis, HIV, dengue, hepatitis, leprosy, meningitis, plague and measles. So international dimension is WHO's International Health Regulations of 1969 and updated in 2005 says that countries must report certain infectious diseases for global surveillance. Ensures coordination against pandemics and cross-border threats. And the final article for the day is Himalayan brown bear, which scientific name is Ursus arctos isabellinus. Why it is in news? It is in news because of rising human and bear conflicts due to climate change altering the alpine ecosystem, habituation to human food sources like garbage, crops, livestock depredation, and habitat fragmentation and shrinking prey base. It has resulted in increased conflict observed in Kashmir and Himachal Pradesh. Basic facts about this Himalayan bear: it is also called as Himalayan red bear, Isabellian bear, or Juthai. Okay, don't confuse this Himalayan red bear with grizzly bear. grizzly bear or other brown bear. This grizzly or brown bear are not found in India. These are found in USA. Okay, they might look same, but they are larger in size. Next, it is a subspecies of brown bear. Okay, the brown bear, it is subspecies of brown bear, and distribution and habitat. It is found in northwestern central Himalayas such as Pakistan, India, and Tibet, Nepal, and Bhutan. Altitude of around 3,000 to 5,500 meter above, which is above timberline, alpine, and subalpine habitats. In India, fragmented populations are found in Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, and Uttarakhand. And physical and behavioral features, males are larger than females. Diet is omnivorous, it eats plants, insects, small mammals, etc. It is hibernate in winter dens, solitary except during the mating or fighting. Lifespan is about 20 to 30 years in the wild. Conservation status, IUCN red list, that is critically endangered. Sites in Appendix 1 and Indian Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, Schedule 1. So it enjoys highest form of protection because of its critically endangered status. So these are the articles which I wanted to discuss with you today. If you like the video, then please hit the like button. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel and also click on the bell icon so that you don't miss a notification. If you have any doubts, you can write in the comment box as well. With this, I will end the video. Jai Hind, Jai Karnataka.